Today we're gathered to talk about generative AI, and that's artificial intelligence that's used to create something. Most commonly in the marketing industry, think about blog posts from Jasper.ai or photos from Mid Journey, those sorts of things. And the world's collective mind was blown a couple months ago when ChatGPT came out, and everyone saw suddenly how powerful this technology was. I know I was initially a little scared, like, what's a social media agency do in this world? But I'm a little calmer now. For each of you, now that you've had a chance to process this and review it, what's your 30-second summary? How do you look at all this? Let's start with you, Zack.
Yeah, so at first, I was somewhat clueless to it, like a lot of us were. Then I kind of had, those underlying, like, oh my gosh, are my days numbered? Should I go back to college? Should I, pursue a different career? And then now, kind of like with all of that going along, it's actually wound up being like a really good tool and just a really good excuse to see how many people are kind of like into that ecosystem and aren't. You've seen like the Twitter memes of like, graphic designers are gonna, no longer be employed, and then it's like, okay, sure. Like, I don't think it's going to get to that point, but it's my short one. Like, I went from being clueless to somewhat hesitant to now like loving to use it as a tool.
Great. Missy?
I was mind blown by learning about this late last year and how it's evolved. So that was my first reaction. And then I was like, oh crap, do we all have jobs? And then we started using it and I'm like, oh, it's got a lot of flaws. And you still need a human who knows how to do prompts really well with the generative piece to get what you want out of it. So it's getting better, but I've also settled down.
It's a little like a really good first date when you think this person is flawless. And then you go on the second, third, fourth, and fifth. You're like, well, not quite flawless.
Oh, that's funny.
Taylor?
So I am generally inquisitive and curious. So I've kind of been following AI for a long time. But this is some of the largest advancements, especially some that you can play with. And so I think I wasn't as skeptical as many. I was like, let's try it. Let's do all the things. But one of my favorite like quotes that came out around when Zack was saying, oh no, are we going to have jobs, was, in order for generative AI to take over a graphic designer's jobs, clients would have to succinctly and accurately describe what they want. And so the tagline was, your jobs are safe. And so I think it was interesting to see it from that perspective, in the sense that I like Zack. I have started kind of where Zack ended, which is I think it can be a really good tool to assist in. It's like an infinite and very quick brainstorming tool. And I think it does require, like Missy said, a human to refine and even make it what it want. I think in my experience, it's always been, oh, wow, that was a great idea or a great start that I would have never thought of. But then for the client I'm trying to use it for, I always end up tweaking something. So it's never the final product. And so that's why I see it as a tool.
Okay. Now let's talk quality. Talk about the quality of the content. Does it match human creativity?
Oh, that's interesting. So it matches, it underperforms, and it exceeds all at the same time. And how I mean that, for me at least, is, so I'll say this two ways. For copy, like ChatGPT, something like that, where you're kind of recreating a brand voice, I tend to see it does fairly well, provided, like Missy said, you do a really, really good prompt and you give it parameters about like I've often done use information you find on this page of a website that's able to pull the right tone of voice and things like that. Now, when you get into like creating images, it's got a problem with hands. It's got a problem with faces.
Teeth.
Teeth.
And time. It has a problem with time.
What do you mean time?
You'll ask for an image set back for a certain time period, and where there were no cars, and like a car will appear off to the right. So there are some time issues too with it that are pretty interesting. I never would have guessed.
But one thing that, so I've used Dolly. I used Dolly for a while, and then Mid Journey I love completely better than Dolly. But like one thing that's interesting the more intelligent they get, is that you can tell it what specific camera you want to use, what angle you want to use, where's the light source. And so I'm giving it things that I would have shot, like a 50 millimeter prime lens at this ISO. And so like what I get back is very interesting. And it could be even be another brainstorming tool to go shoot that very same thing.
I mean, two thoughts with that. Number one, you have to know what sort of lens, what ISO. You have to have some talent that in photography, like I don't know ISO from ABC, so I'm not going to be doing that. But the other thing is, it makes me think about brand content. Like if you want a picture of a dragon, great, Mid Journey's your thing. But Zach, have we been able to just pop off client content and have it faithfully recreate the client's products or stores?
Not at all. I think there's been maybe one slight exception. One of our clients, we kind of used like a monument, but even then it got, kind of the main gist of it correctly. But, there was maybe like windows out of place, or the surrounding, the surrounding composition, it looked nothing like how it did in that location. So it's one of those where, it could work to kind of like help or mold. And I mean, I like, kind of going backwards with Taylor, you were saying, where you can actually kind of use that to like better compose like maybe a real photo or like a real video. But yeah, when it comes to like on brand client, it's not. We've had some weird ones where we have, food clients where we tell it like this specific type of food, and it comes back with some of like the weirdest stuff. But if you want to be like more bland about it and say like, I want a picture of, apples lightly falling out of a basket, like we'll get that, but like we're not going to get like, what comes from the client's like exact brand kit or logo kit for sure.
So then how can we use it?
So I mean, I can definitely kind of continue to speak on this. I think it's, like I said in the beginning, like Missy said, like Taylor said, I mean, it's such a good tool. I think once you actually kind of understand how each program specifically works, you can use it, with its own specialty. Chat GPT has really helped me kind of like figure out how to, I guess, like navigate like run-on sentences if I'm starting to like ramble too much on a longer copy. I mean, ChatGPT's even helped with like certain emails when talking to like external people as well outside of the company. I'm just like, I don't want to come across as like a jerk. So how can I make this sound like, monotone as possible? Mid Journey's been good. I've used it for, I've used it for backgrounds. I've had, producers on my team use it for backgrounds or filler. I think one that we used that was really successful, was a lot of work, was really successful, as one of our clients was in the skincare business. We basically created portraits from chest up of, different ethnic groups, and which that's another conversation of how it doesn't quite nail all of that. But we basically got it to do that and then replicated, skin conditions on it. It required a little bit of Photoshop, but I think it was a lot easier. And, we could ask if it's ethical or not, but I feel like it was easier than having to ask, does this person have a skin disease, and can I put a camera in your face to show everybody that you have this? So the fact that you can use it as a tool to really kind of craft your work and hone in on certain things is really good. But I think it also has that like catch-22 where it's like, well, like what's like the ethical reach of this, or like your like moral standard of it, because it is AI. It's all generated. It's not real.
Yeah.
Now, how did it do with faces in those portraits, since it doesn't always do well with faces?
It did well, it being Mid Journey. But we also had to like extremely break it down, say what we kind of wanted, how far away was it? It was going to be a portrait, blank background, this facial structure. I think we said like, a white woman, a black woman, a white male. Like we were very, very specific on what we wanted. And it definitely took like multiple rounds of it. Like we did not get it like first try. That was, I guess, something that I left out too. Like there were multiple revisions to get what we wanted. And then it was implementing Photoshop and all of that. So
the nice part is that each revision takes like 30 seconds. So that's a nice little positive.
That's a nice
Go ahead, Missy.
Oh, I was going to say, I think, Jim, you mentioned a number of like how many AI tools are out there all encompassing right now. And one of the what we keep doing is testing and learning. And what everyone is saying on the call now about Mid Journey, we didn't know less than a year ago. Like, they all seemed like, what about this one? What about Dolly? Like, that looks good. And it wasn't until we started to actually test them that we could see that there's front runners in the space, and we got to those conclusions. So I think constantly testing to figure out which ones do what best is definitely a best practice at an agency.
Yeah. We built our own socialcraft.ai. There's a little plug for it to create social media content. And that was as much as a sandbox for us, but also a learning process of how do you tie into these AIs. And very quickly you learn how many additional features you would want to make this thing really good over time. I mean, Jasper, to their credit, I mean, I think they're funded with hundreds of millions of dollars, but they've added brand voices. So I'm writing for this brand, click a button and it knows the brand voice. I'm writing for this brand voice. That's a good feature. But I think absent really good direction, what you get back is basically pablum. It sounds good, but it doesn't say anything. Because particularly on the tech side, all ChatGPT is a fancy predictive text model. What word should come after this word? It's basically a super fancy version of that. So when we've asked it to write blog posts about, say, social media strategy, it will generate something that on first read you're like, this is pretty good, but then you realize it doesn't have an original thought. By definition, it doesn't have an original thought. Now, if you take a piece like 10 sort of perspectives or hot takes on social media strategy, you write them down as bullets and you say, write this as a blog post with this tone of voice, then it's awesome. Then it really helps, but you still have to think. You still have to do the work of thinking and getting the help from there. What about brand voice? Are we having any trouble with brand voice for clients? Do we have to type it in every time? How do we look at brand voice?
I can speak to that. I've done a lot of copy for some different types of brands, and I think there's a few ways of doing it. And to Missy's point, when she was saying knowing which tools do different things, like even as a in a creative space for video, like different apps, different tools do different things, like After Effects versus Photoshop. And so generative AI is no different. And so for some tools, it is using their website. For others, it's using a piece of copy and asking it to rewrite it to learn the voice and then asking it to generate. So it's like a bit of teaching it first. I will say in my experience, I have to teach it every time because we don't have the Jasper version where it's like, okay, it remembers this brand voice. But the good thing is, I think in ChatGPT, some of the conversations save. So if I go back to that original thread, no pun intended, I can stay within that brand voice.
Yeah, I think you kind of nailed it in that aspect too. It's a lot of teaching and kind of telling what to do, but it's almost kind of like that like kid that just doesn't listen. Like you always have to repeat yourself and always kind of say like the same thing over and over again. Like I personally caught myself where it's like I'm in the same document. Like why is it making this same mistake? But like there's certain ones too. I think there's maybe 2 or 3 clients that we've used AI on mainly just to make sure like a writing style is fine. And for like what that is, that's really good. But like you're never gonna go in there and just be like, write a post for this specific thing and it's gonna give you some, groundbreaking copy. Like that's still on you as a copywriter, as someone who's creative. Kind of like what you were saying, Jim. Like, it's generative text that's like kind of already been said somewhere and it's just kind of stacking it together, almost like throwing up like Python code like on top of one another. Like someone's got to write that. You've got to be able to address that.
So Photoshop was going to eliminate jobs for designers. Microsoft Publisher was going to eliminate jobs for designers. Canva was going to eliminate jobs for designers. Yet I know many designers with jobs. So Missy, where are we going with this? It's early, so I don't want to think that where we are now is the end game. What's the potential impact on job? How are we going to hire 10 years from now? What's going to be different?
I'm not sure. I know we'll still need that human intelligence, not artificial, to get things to the creative standards that we have. But I also know it can really assist. So I think it's finding that balance. Originally, I will tell you, my thought in the space was you don't need to have like an expertise in this. But as I get more familiar with how to do prompts and see like the flaws to a lot of the things that Zack mentioned about how to write something correctly, or Taylor said about the lighting, you're still going to need that human piece. And I think right now it's just scary. And I don't know if this is correct or not, but sometimes I think about being in Detroit, the auto industry. And when automation first came up, I think people probably thought, holy crap, like and it did impact jobs, but you still need the people to man those plants. You still need quality assurance. You still need standards. So I sometimes draw parallels, and I don't know if it's right, to that type of example with automation. It's automation.
Yeah. My first job in an agency was before I think they had 2 computers, the original Macs, and they were learning how to use them. So my first job, they wanted to put a box around an ad. I actually grabbed the tape, put it down on a grid, cut it with an X-Acto knife. I drew the box now in tape, and then we would tape down the various graphics into the ad. That job no longer exists. It was not a great job, for the record, but I was an intern. I was learning, right? I see this similarly. A lot of the non-value added type jobs will be eliminated. But same thing with automakers. You know, I have to lug this from here to here. Well, now a robot grabs it. Okay, we still have 3.9% unemployment. Like, people still have jobs, but nobody has to lug that anymore. So I think the low value added jobs will be eliminated, but not jobs overall. Let's go beyond jobs and talk about the future, Taylor. I'm going to come to you on this. It's early days. 5-10 years from now, what do you think we're doing in social content creation? Where's generative AI play a role in this? What are you excited about? What are you worried about?
What I'm worried about is iRobot for sure. I think what I'm worried about is like the lack of guardrails and having, because I think what's beautiful about the way AI exists today is it is manipulated and operated by a human. It's not necessarily completely robotic to where it's having to, like, even the horror stories we've heard of how off the rails it could get, it was being manipulated by a human. And so, but like, so what scares me is like if it were to just be AI to AI talking and coming up with their own plan, that God knows what they could generate. But as far as kind of where I think we'll be, there's even kind of with what we were just saying as far as jobs, like there's a part of me that wonders, in the same way that there are SEO specialists, like will there be generative AI specialists who have these specific prompts, they know exactly how to use them to generate certain type of things, and that would be different across different industries. Like there'll be one for social, there'll be one for general marketing, etc. But I do think there's a part of me that thinks it's here to stay in a way that I wouldn't have said. I have background in AR and VR and all the things, and I think that's a slower burn than I think AI is, because there's so many real world applications already that I think that's only going to get better within the next 5 to 10 years. So I think it's going to become a more normal part. It won't be like, oh my God, this new AI thing. It'll be like, oh yeah, this is part of our process. After you finish your copy, you'll run it through this AI. It'll be like a normal part of the day.
I mean, every tool's adding AI. Microsoft has Copilot. HubSpot has AI in it. Heyorka has AI in it. Every tool is adding AI to it. So yeah, I think that's the way we'll think. But Zack, I'm going to ask you to brush off your crystal ball. Where do you see this going?
I mean, I guess kind of full circle conversation here. I kind of just see it being like a really good tool, whether you could use it for, for fun or use it, as a creative to kind of enhance what you're doing. I mean, one of my favorite AI features in Photoshop is that transparent background. I'm not going to say I'm good or bad at masking out, and I'm not going to say if I use the magic wand or the pen tool, because I'm not going to start a war in the comments, but it's just so nice to sometimes save like 35, 45 minutes of having something cut out. And, it's not perfect, and, like the feathering's a little off, but like it's such a good start. And then you can kind of go in there and clean it up. So like that's, one of my favorite things. And I mean, I just continue to kind of see it as a tool to just enhance what you're doing. And then if you really want to like learn that process, at least on the Adobe side, it really does show a good job, like in your layer tools and effects, presets and all of that, like how it kind of got to that point. So it could be like a good way to learn instruction too, since I think like, my generation, as weird as that sounds, was the YouTube University people when it came to like wanting to do video content and stuff like that. So this next one could be like a weird, like AI generative thing. As far as, job security, kind of touches on what all of y'all had said. And especially Taylor at the very beginning, you said, that they're never going to replace us, because that means that like the client knows exactly what they want. And as much as I hate this saying, I would love to put it into an AI and say, make this graphic pop or make this video pop. Like, I'd love to know what the AI thinks of that. Like, would it actually pop the image, or would it actually understand like that trigger word that so many of us creatives have heard throughout our entire creative life cycle?
Yeah. I feel like it's going to be a lot better in some ways. I do worry about the downside, just like social media. I mean, social media has created so many amazing worldwide connections. Arab Spring wouldn't have happened without social media, all sorts of wonderful things, but we've already also seen some of the negatives. I know like phishing scams, like a lot of them are really poorly written with grammatical errors. Well, with AI, I'm expecting to get really sophisticated spam emails, and I'm a little worried about that. But in terms of marketing and social, yeah, I'm excited about the positive side as well. So with that, we've been talking for over 22 minutes, so we should probably wrap it up here. But I think you all did a wonderful job. Oh, the audience agrees. The audience agrees.